Hi, I'm Jeremy, and you're listening to Verse by Verse. On the fourth day of the creation week, Genesis 1:16 tells us that God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. It's not obvious at first glance, but there are some interesting things going on here. For example, did you notice that this verse doesn't use the word sun or moon? I mean, it's obviously talking about the sun and the moon, right? There's no way you could read that and think that maybe it was talking about two other great lights that God happened to assign to the day and to the night. But the actual Hebrew words for sun and moon don't show up in that verse. They don't even show up in that chapter. In fact, the word for sun, shemesh, doesn't show up in the Bible until Genesis 15, and the word for moon, yorea, doesn't show up until Genesis 37. Why? When God brought the Israelites into the Promised Land, He warned them in Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 19, "And take heed, lest you lift your eyes to heaven, and when you see the sun, the moon, and the stars, all the host of heaven, you feel driven to worship them and serve them, which the Lord your God has given to all the peoples under the whole heaven as a heritage." The ancient world deified and worshipped God's creation. They looked at the sun, the moon, and the stars and imagined them to be powerful gods ruling over the heavens. And God knew that His people would be tempted to do the same thing that the nations around them were doing, to worship these celestial lights instead of the being that created the celestial lights. In fact, when the first chapter of Genesis was recorded, there's a good chance that this had already happened. The Hebrew words for sun and moon, shemesh and yorea, may have already been in use as the names of these false gods. If that's the case, then using them here in Genesis chapter 1 and verse 16 would have sent a potentially confusing message to the ancient world, that here on the fourth day of creation, God created the sun god and the moon god. By describing the sun and moon as two great lights, the creation account emphasizes what God actually did. He didn't create two lesser gods and put them in charge of the sky. He, the Creator, the only true God, created two lights, placed them where they needed to be, told them what to do, and they obeyed. The creation stories of the ancient world are filled with gods fighting other gods for dominance. In those stories, gods kill other gods, sometimes using their dead bodies to create the universe we live in, or else asserting their power over rival deities. In fact, the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation account, describes the god Marduk as ordering the cosmos in exactly the reverse order. First, he places the star gods in their positions, and then entrusts the moon god and the sun god with their new duties. In the Babylonian imagining, these were all gods, dominated and instructed by Marduk. He places the stars, the moon, and the sun, but he didn't create them. They were already there. To an ancient ear, Genesis 1:16 would have a very clear message. These gods that people worship, the sun, the moon, the stars, they're just things. Not divine, but incredible lights, created and set in place by the only true God, who rules uncontested over the entire universe. It's a challenge to those who would worship the handiwork of God instead of God Himself. Now, you probably don't need anyone to clarify for you that the sun, moon, and stars are not gods, and that you shouldn't worship them. But even still, Genesis 1:16 can serve as a reminder for us of who God is and what He can do. Once upon a time, there were no lights, no sun, no moon, no stars. And then God made them. Our God made them. Out of nothing. And He did that as a prelude to creating the human race, us, in His image with the potential to join His family. The God who can do that deserves our worship.
Verse by Verse is a Life, Hope, and Truth podcast. Check out the show notes to find more free content, like videos, articles, and booklets in our Learning Center.